Well, hello there, friend. Welcome to the Construction Leadership Podcast, where we help construction executives lead high-performing teams, finish on time and under budget, without all the firefighting and babysitting, so you can lead with focus and control. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. Now, on Tuesday's episode, I met with Executive Vice President Mike Ellerbrook, who works for UFP Site Built. They offer a wide range of prefabricated building components, including wood structural components, aluminum decks and rails, and cold-formed steel solutions. And Mike and I talk about the different ways you can resonate with your team, different ways to lead, different ways to drive accountability and reduce the resistance to change. And this centered around this discussion of leadership styles. And I got to see Mike in action. I saw him rely on two different leadership styles. And afterwards I said, man, we got to talk about this because there's this classic Harvard Business Review article by Daniel Goleman. You may know him from all his social intelligence work, but he wrote a classic article called Leadership That Gets Results. And in it, he describes 6 different leadership styles that give us vocabulary to understand how we can lead differently based upon different situations. And this is how he opens the article. Ask any group of business people the question, what do effective leaders do? And you'll hear a sweep of answers. Leaders set strategy, they motivate, they create a mission, they build a culture. Then ask, what should leaders do? If the group is seasoned, you'll likely hear one response. The leader's singular job is to get results. But how? And that's why I think this is so relevant today in construction. It's such a fast-paced, high-pressure environment. We got diverse crews, shifting project demands, and your leadership style and those of the leaders who are running the jobs directly impacts job site safety, productivity, and culture. And before we dive into a practical review of the 6 leadership styles, I think it's important to talk about this word climate. And here on page 2, Goleman writes, business climate is not an amorphous term. It refers to 6 key factors that influence an organization's working environment. It's flexibility. That is, how free employees feel to innovate unencumbered by red tape. Their sense of responsibility to the organization, the level of standards that people set, the sense of accuracy about performance feedback and aptness of rewards, the clarity people have about mission and values, and finally, the level of commitment to a common purpose. So before we jump into the 6 leadership styles, it is critical to understand what's happening in the business climate. So if you're analyzing your own team, or maybe even a competitor, you can look at their flexibility, responsibility, standards, rewards, clarity, and commitment. So I just tripped over this reading this article, and I realized these are 6 components. Well, we're going to be diving into leadership per se. This is the situation when we're talking about the person and the situation. This is the much broader environment in which we're operating that we need to be aware of. So if you were to read this article, and I would recommend you do, you can go to our show notes and you can click the link to go find that. It'll come right up. His core finding was that great leaders don't rely on just one style. They flex their style based on the people, the moment, and their mission. In a way, leadership styles are like tools, not identities. And there's the cliche, which is apt right here, which is if you only have one leadership style, it's like only having a hammer, and when you do, everything looks like a nail. So let's jump into the different styles. The first one is a commanding leadership style. And if there's a tagline for this, it's do what I say. This is very top down, and sometimes it's necessary in urgent or safety critical situations. In the article, Goleman writes, take the case of a division president who's brought in to change the direction of a food company that was losing money. His first act was to have the executive conference room demolished. To him, the room, with its long marble table that looked like the deck of the Starship Enterprise, symbolized the tradition-bound formality that was paralyzing the company. The destruction of the room and the subsequent move to a smaller, more informal setting sent a message that no one could miss, and the division's culture changed quickly in its wake. Now, the most obvious example of using the commanding leadership style in construction is when there's a safety incident or there's risk. Immediately stop the crane, get down, come here. And it works best in a crisis or a non-negotiable situation where we must have compliance. However, if it's overused, it creates a climate of fear and it kills initiative. The next one is a coaching leadership style. Its tagline would be, hey, maybe try this. Now, in the article, Goleman cites Joe Torre, the former manager of the New York Yankees, but because I hate the Yankees, I'm going to ignore him and not read anything about them. The coaching leadership style can help individuals grow skills and improve confidence. This would be like a project manager coaching a young superintendent on sequencing or learning some principles of lean that can be applied in real time on the job. And it works best when you got team members who want development, who are looking for coaching. However, if it's overused, things can really bog down, they get slow, and this can be problematic in some high pressure moments. So after the commanding leadership and coaching leadership, we have affiliative leadership. So affiliative, think of team. And the tagline here would be, people come first. These sorts of leaders really prioritize harmony, relationships, high morale among the troops. So if you've ever been on a job site where you had two alphas and say it's like the foreman of your plumbing crew get in a fist fight and knock some teeth out of the young loudmouth electrician, and everyone was huddled around, it was a giant mess, and everyone was rooting it on like it was something out of junior high. This is when the affiliative leadership style works best, when the team is stressed or fractured and we need to bring everybody back, pointed in the right direction. However, if it's overused, it can tolerate low performance on the job. The next one is arguably the most dangerous, which is the pace-setting leadership, which is do as I do now. And Goleman here writes, the hallmarks of the pace-setting style sound admirable. The leader sets extremely high performance standards and exemplifies them himself. He is obsessive about doing things better and faster, and he asks the same of everyone around him. He quickly pinpoints poor performers and demands more from them. If they don't rise to the occasion, he replaces them with people who can. You would think such an approach would improve results, but it doesn't. In fact, the pace-setting style destroys climate. Many employees feel overwhelmed by the pace-setter's demands for excellence, and the morale drops. Guidelines for working may be clear in the leader's head, but she does not state them clearly. She expects people to know what to do and even thinks, if I have to tell you, you're the wrong person for the job. As for rewards, the pace-setter either gives no feedback on how people are doing or jumps in to take over when he thinks they're lagging. Now, the pace-setter leadership style is very common when you get behind schedule and your superintendent takes over and just manhandles everything and wills the entire project along to meet the schedule. And it works best with a highly skilled teams who can self-manage. But when it's overused, it burns people out, it creates anxiety, it increases turnover, and reduces creativity. After the pace-setter leadership style, the fifth one is the democratic leadership style, whose tagline is, what do you think? So on the job site, the democratic leadership style might be most effective if weather's coming in, it's getting colder, we got to pour a bunch of concrete, but it's at night. What we're looking for is a collaborative planning session before any of that happens. And it works best when you need ideas, you need consensus, and you need everybody committing on the same course of action. However, if it's overused, decision-making becomes so slow. And if you're like me, I want to make a decision and keep moving. The last thing I want is another meeting. If that's the case, democratic leadership can slow down and annoy the hell out of the type A personalities on the team. And the sixth and final one is visionary leadership, whose tagline is, come with me. They're providing purpose, long-term direction, and motivation. And if you spend any time with a recent leader who was on the show, Evan McKee in Dallas with Suffolk Construction, you're certainly going to feel these vibes when he's painting the picture about how this hospital project will change the lives of the patients who get care there for the next several decades. And the visionary leadership style works best when there is a lot of change. We're introducing new initiatives and there's a process of transformation underway. But if overused, it can feel really vague and it'll feel like there's lots of talking, but very little accountability. So these are the 6 leadership styles. You have commanding, do what I say, coaching, maybe try this, affiliative, people come first, pace setting, do as I do, now, democratic, what do you think? And visionary, come with me. And what Goleman writes at the end of the article is this. Leaders who have mastered 4 or more, especially the commanding or authoritative, as he calls it, democratic, affiliative, and coaching styles have the best climate and business performance. So other than downloading the article by Goleman and reading that, in our show notes, you can also download the 2 slides that are kind of my cheat sheets for these 6 leadership styles that I use in our leadership class at the University of Oklahoma master's program for construction professionals. And you can be asking these questions. What does this moment demand? Which style unlocks the best from this person? Is there a style I'm overusing just because it's comfortable? And the easiest way to start using this is to know thyself. Think about your dominant style. Is there a style you typically avoid? Is there one that you can wade into the waters on, but you don't like it, you feel cold, you can't wait to get out? And then over the next week or so, look for a situation where you can flex. You can start out in something that is instinctive and natural for you, and then intentionally change your leadership style to get a different reaction. Because, my friend, at the end of the day, leadership is not about control, it's about climate. And again, climate's all about flexibility, responsibility, standards, rewards, clarity, commitment. If you want results, you need a positive, engaging climate because climate determines performance. That's all I've got. We're going to close out with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.